Is pick 31 a first round curse or a hidden gold mine? We're 31 days out from the 2026 NFL draft, and today we're digging through 90 years of history to find out why quarterbacks never go here, which legendary Steeler is a Hall of Fame lock from this spot, and why the 31st pick is suddenly ripe for the picking. Welcome to the Pig Pen. Let's talk draft history with our guest, Ed Kleese.
Thanks for having me, Darin.
Definitely, Ed. We're glad to have you here. And we had a great conversation yesterday about the history of pick 32. If you missed that, go into the show notes and you can catch that one and get caught up with that, what we talked about. And now talking about pick number 32. It's, kind of a fast, I'm sorry, pick number 31. We have two Hall of Famers that came out of this draft in the first 90 years of the draft. And it's got the most popular pick in this draft has been running backs and offensive tackles, been 12 each drafted at pick number 31 over the years. What do you have to say about the history of pick 31?
Just like we talked about a little bit yesterday, this is another one of those picks that for about half of the drafts was a second round pick. And more, not even like more than half of the drafts was a second round pick. And more recently, the last 25 years or so has become a first round pick with more teams. The very first thing that stood out is, again, because you're going back to the beginning of the draft for some of your numbers. When I'm coming to the player analysis, I'm going back to 1980. And what I noticed is there's been recent years, like the last 10 years, very little impact from this pick. Odafe Owe is probably the best player that I could find in the last 10 years drafted in this pick. Teams have not done very well at this spot recently. And overall, I would say it's not a real standout group that I analyzed at all. There was a real flurry of picks from like 2007 to 2013, and that's going to be reflected in my top five. But otherwise, it's kind of a little bit of a nondescript group. And how about this? Since 1980, at least, no quarterbacks taken 31st in this at this pick.
Yeah, there has been very few quarterbacks. Actually, I don't see any quarterbacks have been taken in this draft at pick number 31. So that's really an odd place. You'd think at least somebody would want a quarterback in that.
Yeah, it was kind of weird to me too, especially because on pick number 32 we had some fairly notable quarterbacks. There's a few other notable names that did not make my top five that I think are at least worth mentioning. You had Vance Johnson in 1985 for the Broncos, who was one of the three Amigos receivers, a really nice player. You had Ickey Woods in 1988, who, for that one or two seasons, took the league by storm, really his rookie year. He flamed out quickly, but he was a really fun player with the Ickey Shuffle, of course, if people remember that. Jerry Hughes in 2010 had a really nice career, defensive end. And Doug Martin, the running back in 2012, also had a pretty nice career. One guy I do want to talk about, and it's somewhat timely, is that the Redskins took a kid out of Temple, a guard named Trey Johnson, in 1994. Trey was a dominant player. He was awesome. He was a great player on bad teams. Unfortunately, career got totally derailed by injuries fairly early. And unfortunately, we just got the news, I think about a little while ago, that he passed away at a very young age. He had become a coach and a teacher and a mentor. But he was, and for a very brief period, was a really, really good offensive lineman in the league.
Yeah, that's a very tragic thing for such a young man with a lot of life left to live to lose his life. So yeah, definitely glad you mentioned him on there. All right. Something that we talked about yesterday is pick 31 hasn't always been a first round pick, but it gets a little bit more even. Yesterday was a little bit more dramatic. The second round was more popular for 32, but for 31, there's been 28 first round times it's been a first round pick, and 32 that it's been a second round pick. Then it was third and fourth back before the merger and things like that. But you have a top five for us today.
I do, and really, it's fairly weak, I would say. I kind of had a hard time. Again, I'm going back to 1980. I had a bit of a hard time. No Hall of Famers. My number one is someone I think will be in the Hall of Fame. But as of right now, there aren't any. And we'll start at number five. I had wide receiver Carl Pickens, drafted in 1992 by the Bengals. The reason, he had a very brief burst, the mid-90s, that 95, 96. I believe Jeff Blake was the quarterback for those years. Pickens led the league in touchdowns one year. He had 199 receptions combined over a 2-year span. And then he was just kind of okay for a couple of years, and then he was gone. So a nice career, looked like he might be a superstar, and then just kind of faded from there. But good enough to make my list.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick there. I think, but he might have had Boomer Esiason for a year or two. I think.
I don't know. I can't remember. But I know Boomer came back. He left the Bengals. I believe he came back. I cannot remember. Then the '90s Bengals were pretty forgettable. So I can't. They kind of a lot of it runs together. And I'm not sure what year, but he did have a couple of massive years on a couple of bad teams.
Yeah. Okay. So who'd you have at number 4?
Number 4, another guy who kind of flamed out. It looked like he was going to be on his way to the Hall of Fame, but that would be Nnamdi Asomugha, 2003 cornerback he was drafted by the Raiders. He had like a mid-career explosion. He was a guy, and then all of a sudden people said, hey, this might be one of the best corners in the league. If you recall, he signed a massive free agent deal with the Eagles, and it was like cover of Sports Illustrated, I think, or some other, it was like a big deal. And he did fine for the Eagles for a year or two, and then just kind of faded out. And he is an actor now. And he has a couple of upcoming shows on both Netflix and Apple Plus. If you desire to find out what Mr. Asomugha is doing now, you'll be able to stream him very soon.
Yeah, or you can watch him play football, where he played at a very high level in his good years. So
there you go.
Check that out back on NFL and other things like that. So, okay, who is your third pick?
Number 3 is a guy that would easily be in the Hall of Fame if his career was not cut short. And that would be Travis Frederick, drafted 2013 by the Cowboys at center. Probably one of the best centers in the NFL in the past 25, that last quarter century at least. Get this, man. The dude made 3 straight all-pro teams. Now, that is awesome. And obviously in center, there's one, right? There's not 2 guards, there's one center. So, for his career, he was considered basically the best center in the NFL almost every year. He had that, I think I'm pronouncing it correct, the Guillain-Barré syndrome. It's a muscle disease that kept him out of one season. He came back and played another season. I believe he made the Pro Bowl in that season and then had to retire. It's potentially pretty dangerous. I think from what I can understand, he's doing fine now. He just was not able to play football anymore. But that guy was headed to Canton for sure. He probably does not have enough years under his belt to get there, but he was on his way.
Yeah, God, I remember him playing, but it's unfortunate he had that disease. Okay, so who do you have above him?
Number 2 is a guy that I knew was good, but when I started digging into the numbers, I was like, dang, this might be Hall of Fame numbers. And that is Greg Olsen, tight end. Drafted in 2007 by the Bears. I think most of us are going to remember him from the Panthers, but he is in the top 10 all time in both receptions and yards for a tight end. And that is big time. I mean, in the history of the NFL, you've got, top 10 in 2 massive categories. He played all 16 games, Darin, 9 years in a row. Jeez. So at a pretty physical position where you're blocking and receiving. So 9 years in a row, he played every game. And he was on some very good Panthers teams, highly competitive, played in the Super Bowl, even had a couple decent years there at the end of his career with the Seahawks. I would say maybe like a sneaky Canton resume. At least should be in the argument probably. And now I realize that he is now the number 2 analyst for Fox, but he's really the best. He is really good. I think so. He's got a real bright post-career future here and doing what he's doing now as well. So he's going to be a guy that's going to be in your football life probably for quite a while.
Yeah, most definitely. All right. I think I probably know the answer to this, but who do you have at number 1?
You're going to love this, I think, because like I said, this is a guy that I'm pretty sure is headed to Canton, and that is Cam Hayward of the Pittsburgh Steelers, drafted in 2011. Sort of that hybrid defensive tackle, defensive end. I think he's kind of played both. First of all, he's got to be one of the more likable guys in the league, one of the better leaders, one of the more vocal players, he's very impressive. But then this is impressive too. He's been extremely durable. He went to 6 straight Pro Bowls, 92 sacks. And that's a lot of sacks for a guy that plays interior also. So I don't think he has a Hall of Fame resume. I think at this point, he is a Hall of Fame lock.
Yeah, I think you're right there. He's headed that way. And it's amazing, back in 2025, he was 36 years old, almost didn't get signed by the Steelers, and PFF rated him as the highest defensive lineman, interior lineman in the league.
Ironhead would be proud.
Yeah, definitely would. Definitely would. All right, those are some really solid picks. I think one that maybe escaped you a little bit. I don't even think you mentioned him earlier. How about Todd Heap, a tight end for Baltimore for many years in Arizona? He had a couple of Pro Bowl seasons and some very good seasons. Ended up having 499 receptions, 42 TDs over a 12-year span. So not too bad for a tight end.
Yeah. I looked at him. I didn't have him in the list. Maybe I should have mentioned him with the other honorable mention types. Yeah, nice career for Heap for sure.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier we had 2 Hall of Famers, and these go in the Wayback Machine. Philadelphia Eagles fans will remember Tommy McDonald was drafted in the 3rd round at the pick number 31. Yeah, definitely. 1957, he ended up having a Hall of Fame career. And Pearlie Culp was drafted by Denver in 1968. Another great player, defensive tackle that had a very good career, now has a bust in Canton. So those are our 2 Hall of Famers at pick 31.
Yeah, and it's been a while since we've had it. And like I said, Hayward's going to go, and I don't think anybody else is. So pick number 31 is ripe for the picking if somebody wants to have a big career.
Most definitely. All right. Are you ready for our draft stat of the day that we're doing here?
I was impressed with number 32. So let's see if you can beat it with number 31.
Okay. So this is interesting from a coaching standpoint, talking about the first round of the draft. Now, thanks to Caleb Williams' selection, USC head coach Lincoln Riley became the first college coach in common draft era to produce 3 number 1 overall picks.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
excellent. And you know where they all went, right?
Where they went to school?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you probably got that on your hat there too. I've got a beer mug up in front of me.
Right.
Here
That's right.
Has the same school on it.
Nice.
All right, Ed. Well, I think that wraps up our pick 31 night, 31 days before the draft. Tune back tomorrow where Ed and I will be on again to talk about pick number 30 as we approach the draft for 2026. Ed, we really appreciate you coming on. You're talking about football history. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
That's all the football history we have today, folks. Join us back tomorrow for more of your football history. We invite you to check out our website, pigskindispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskindispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. Special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.